Hey everyone, Marco here. Welcome back to the feature-length podcast. Just wanted to put a little heads up at the front of this episode that this is actually a direct sequel to episode 48 on Batman the Animated Series. This episode and the last episode were sort of recorded as one big episode on the entire topic. So after our formal intro that you're about to hear, we're going to get right into the discussion on Batman Beyond. If you have enough context for this universe, you could probably just hop right in and enjoy it, but I would strongly recommend going back to listen to that first episode because we are going to be bringing up themes that were established in the original animated series that get paid off here, as well as at the end of this, we do our overall ranking list and leave you with our final thoughts. Previously on the feature-length podcast.
The casting director's name is Andrea, but also I just remember because there's that one scene when he's having a flashback and he goes, Andrea, and it's really dramatic.
Right.
Good times.
Andrea.
Yeah.
And there's
classic
a scene,
Scarecrow.
classic Scarecrow, but before that, Scarecrow's just like fumbling around and he hears something and he goes, like he literally, I'm gonna edit it in, but he does the most ridiculous.
I remember that.
Like what was that noise of like hearing something and being like, huh? But instead of just going, huh, he goes, and he like walks over.
Batman?
Oh my god, I would like it makes me laugh so fucking hard.
Not fair. Revenge was within my grasp. I was so close.
That's what it... So we were talking about the hand riddle. It's because there was a giant floating hand in the maze because the video game had like a cursor.
Yes, but like in the context in the episode, it still made no sense. But
Yeah,
yes.
he's like,
sure.
you need the upper hand or something.
Yeah.
No,
And
that
it's
would have
just-
been more clever. That's giving it too
Oh,
much.
okay.
Yeah.
How do you take out a Minotaur with a single blow? Like this. Harvey. No.
What is the feature-length podcast? Anyone?
The feature-length podcast is a show where three idiots talk about film and entertainment.
Good answer.
Hey guys, what's up?
Hey, are you talking to us?
Yeah. I'm talking to the voices in my head.
Like I truly don't know. It felt like a fever dream. I swear to God, I could not
It sounds
make
so
this shit
stupid
up.
hearing that.
If you're listening to this is a podcast.
Welcome back to the feature-length podcast.
Welcome back to the feature-length podcast.
Welcome back to the feature-length podcast, a podcast where we talk about movies and TV for a feature length of time.
Batman Beyond.
Let's go beyond.
So, yeah, just a little bit of like context, I guess. Like Batman Beyond is the future of the DC animated universe. Yeah, I mean it's cool. Like I alluded to in the intro, it is totally like created for this because basically the idea was like they couldn't do the Dark Knight Returns as a future show because that is so adult. That you could never do that, and so they kind of had to take elements from that and just turn it into their own thing. And so they make this whole cyberpunk, like Blade Runner-esque future Gotham that's sort of built on top of the ruins of old Gotham. And old Bruce Wayne has to teach this new young kid, Terry McGinnis, how to be Batman, how to be the new Batman. Yeah, and it's cool because this new Batman also has a Commissioner Gordon because Barbara Gordon is the new commissioner because she stopped being Batgirl and she became commissioner, and so there's some fun interplay there, and that's sort of like the setup, I guess, for the universe.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then we go right into Rebirth, which is the pilot.
The pilot, Rebirth, part 1 and 2.
The origin of Terry. This is interesting because, like, before we find out the actual villain of the episode, we're led to believe that his father is killed by the Joker gang of, like, people imitating the Jokers, or the Joker, who is now presumed, like, dead in this timeline. Like,
Yes.
he's gone.
Yeah.
It's just people imitating him. We didn't see a lot of them in the episodes that we watched, which I'm kind of glad, to be honest, because
They
I
kinda
don't
suck.
I don't really like them. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is interesting how they play a role in Terry's origin.
Yeah, because at this point in the story, when everything's being introduced, there are no more, like, major villains.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of these gangs that represent the villains. So, like, the Jokers, for example, is just a gang of people. One guy's dressed up like the Joker, but at the end of the day, they're just still a gang.
Yes.
Right?
They're just people.
And it's also, like, again, pulling from Dark Knight Returns, like, in that, there's, like, the mutant gang.
Yes.
Like, that's very clearly what this is supposed to be. But it does lead
they
to...
were also in Batman and Robin.
Yes, that's true. Fuck. It does lead to a cool moment where... Basically, when Terry is introduced to Bruce. Because, okay, so basically Terry McGinnis is this high school kid, young, hothead.
Also a great name.
Yeah, very great. His dad works for Wayne Powers. So there's this guy named Derek Powers that has basically bought out parts of Wayne Enterprises. So he now is basically running the company into the ground because Bruce Wayne is a recluse and he's doing really evil things. So his dad works for that company and his parents are divorced because he's, like, young and hip. Like, that was the premise, literally. It's like, you know, young kids these days, their parents are divorced, so he's in high school. Anyway.
It's in.
Yeah, it's in. So, like, and so, yeah, he lives with his dad, but he hates him because he's a teenager. And basically his dad is, like, figuring out what's going on with Wayne Powers and how they're making this, like, evil chemical to kill people or something. And so he's killed because of it. And... yeah, and Terry kind of blames himself because it's framed to look like it was the Jokers, who, because Terry is a hothead, he, like, picked a fight with. And so he thinks it's kind of his fault. And during that fight that he picks with the Jokers, it's cool because he ends up accidentally going to the old Wayne estate, and Bruce is out there, old man Bruce, and I love the scene. And his dog, Ace, who features prominently. And I love it because... The Joker's like, oh, don't you know who we are? We're the Jokers. And Bruce is just kind of like, are you? And he just, like, fucks them up. It's such a great scene. But then immediately is undercut by him being like, oh, my chest. Like, I'm an old man. And so, like, Terry has to help get him his meds. And that's where he discovers his Batman. He accidentally discovers the Batcave.
Yeah, because wasn't it also in this pilot episode as well that we started with Batman, like, with Bruce still being Batman?
Yes.
And what happened was he was trying to stop a gang, was having, like, this heart attack or, like, these, like, issues breathing, old age symptoms.
Yeah.
And what ends up happening is he finds himself cornered and he has to pull out a gun on the person, and he scared the gang member away because he didn't want to get shot. And Bruce had this realization moment, like, holy crap, I had to resort to using a weapon against someone, like an actual firearm. And he goes, I can't do this. Like, I have to stop being Batman because I'm too old at this point.
Yeah.
Like, I can't, if I have to start relying on actually killing people to do my job, I can't do this.
Exactly.
And then he just straight up and quit.
Defeat the purpose of Batman. I love it.
That was cool.
It's, I think, the only cold open in all of Batman Beyond, but it's so perfect. Because, it is like old man Bruce, his last adventure as Batman, everything is fucked, has to pull the gun, and the only dialogue from him is the dialogue from Dark Knight Returns, where he goes to the cave, he puts the suit away, and he just says, never again. And he, like, shuts up all the lights one by one on everything that you know. The last thing is the Batsuit, and the light shuts up on the Batsuit. And then you go to the intro, which is, like, this new, cool, hip intro. But, and it introduces the idea of Batman Beyond. It's super cool. But so Terry finds out Bruce is Batman and is kind of like, finds out that maybe, like, Derek Powers is involved in the death of his father, and so he steals the Batsuit to try to get vengeance for it. Well, first he goes to Bruce and he's like, hey, you're Batman, and Bruce is like, no, I'm 80, so I can't do this. So then he steals the suit and is like, fuck it, I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna be Batman. And I love it, because Bruce is essentially just like, fuck you. He becomes his guy in the chair reluctantly. He's like, fuck you, like, bring the suit back, whatever. And we get the kind of touching moment of Terry being like, this is all I have. Like, I need to do this. I need to... Which also, like, to me, just to, like, we'll go through these episodes faster, but, like, conceptually for Batman Beyond, like, part of why I like it so much, part of why Terry is always my definitive canon, like, Batman successor, because he's the only one that, like, chooses to be Batman.
Yes.
And this comes up.
He's not brought into it.
He's not brought in. He's not a sidekick. And, like, this comes up in the idea of, like, we all thought we chose this, but it's like, no, Terry did choose this. Like, that's what makes him the successor. That's what Bruce sees in him that he didn't see in the other ones. Of like, oh, like, I had nothing to do with this. You just were like me when I was young, and like you don't have a hope for a happy life, and so
There's a reason for that. No, I'm kidding.
oh my god,
We'll get to that later. I'm sorry, I didn't even mean to bring it up yet. But anyway,
yeah,
no, and that's what's really cool too. Just because of the fact that, like you said, he never was a sidekick or anything like that, and for him it was more of an identity thing. I remember a couple times Bruce said, you know, you've done enough for this city, like you can stop being Batman, and Terry's like, no, I want to be Batman. When I am Batman is the only time where I can kind of fulfill myself and be a better person and do things like to help the city that I can't do otherwise. So like you said, for him, it is a lot more of a choice than it is like, I was brought into this, it's like a duty, it's due diligence, but for him, it's more self-fulfilling.
Exactly. It's super cool.
Yeah.
I think it's a really cool origin episode. I've always said, like, I know you guys haven't seen The Mask of Zorro. Dan, we'll talk about it our next podcast episode. But,
Next podcast episode?
Our next selection series episode.
Oh.
But yeah, like, the Mask of Zorro, like, if you just took that script and, like, Control F'd and just swapped out Zorro with Batman, like, it would just be Rebirth, and you could just make a Batman Beyond movie and just cast Michael Keaton as old man Batman in the Batcave, and just cast some young up-and-comer as Terry, and just make it. Like, it would be fantastic. It would totally work as a movie.
Here's a question. Who would you see, like, who as an actor would play a good Terry?
I've always thought, like, you just go, like, unknown. Like, to a certain extent. Like, it's so hard when it comes to, like, those teenage actors, because it's, like, yeah, I don't know. Because even Tom Holland was, like, mostly unknown when he was cast for Spider-Man, so it's, like...
True.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head anyone right now. But yeah, I mean, just do it. Just as long as Michael Keaton's old man Bruce Wayne, then the rest is fine.
The other thing I like about Batman Beyond, since we're starting to talk about like the series as a whole as we go through, is just the fact that like Batman has been away for a little bit, I think, because when Terry starts to become Batman, everyone's like, what the hell? Like, who are you? It's like he's kind of being reintroduced, but the people who already knew Batman from before, they're like, oh, you're not Batman. Like, what the hell are you doing?
Yes.
And he's like always trying to kind of like prove himself and be like, no, like I am Batman now.
Yes.
And it's just funny seeing that development.
Exactly. Well, you even get that in this episode of like his origin, like his I'm Batman moment is in this episode where he's fighting like the thug, I guess.
Yeah.
At the end, and the thug is like, oh, like you're just some punk who thinks he's Batman, and he's like, no, I am Batman.
Yeah.
And then he murders.
There is like distinct. I think it was in Rebirth or like the two-parter at the beginning where he straight up just kills people, like 2 or 3 people, and then Bruce is like, oh, he's like, you're doing this now, okay?
Yeah, we'll have to work on the no killing rule.
Yeah, it's like that hasn't been
used to the
established
suit.
yet.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, and then it also sets up that Derek Powers gets infected with the toxin that he was making. The only way to stop him from dying is like this intense radiation therapy that turns him into Blight, which is the season 1 overarching villain, who is just a guy that glows green and shoots fireballs and stuff.
Radioactive
and,
fireballs.
Yeah. But it leads to a great meme, which we'll get to when we get there.
It is a great meme. But yeah, so like the radiation therapy essentially just like melts away all of his skin and he just turns into like a radiation man.
Yeah, so he has to put fake skin on to maintain appearance.
Yeah. It's too bad he couldn't use like the clay face. Yeah, the clay face is like cream or whatever to just like mask, but yeah, oh well.
I really like the Beyond universe. Like now that we're finally here, I mean, I just think like just make like a Blade Runner-esque movie, like stylistically with like these elements, and even the villains. Like we're about to start getting into the new villains. Like conceptually, it's cool because it's always a combination of either old villains being brought back or new villains that are kind of like updated versions of types of villains that we've seen before, and so like it's cool like to have that interplay there. There's so much depth to this like future universe.
Yeah, and also we kind of talked about it already, but I like that like future Gotham is vertically structured. So like the lower down you go, the older you get, to the point where like old Gotham is just the ground floor basically.
Yeah,
it's cool.
And the fact that like old Gotham is referenced and is a thing in this universe, like it still exists, is really cool as well.
Well, it actually plays a major part in an upcoming episode.
Exactly, yeah.
Anyway, but next episode is Blackout. This is the introduction of Ink, who we can talk about more in depth in her episode later. She's just the symbiote, but a person. Like the Venom symbiote, but a person, basically.
And we don't really get an explanation for why.
And that's the only thing I don't like about her. Like, she's fine as a character. In terms of, like, some of the other characters, she matches up equally. Like, she's fine.
She's fine.
I hate the fact that in her origin story, we're just supposed to accept the fact that she's been mutated.
Yeah,
like,
that's all they say.
her genes have been mutated, now she's an ink monster. Like,
Yeah.
what?
She's just this woman that can turn into black goo, and the black goo can, like, morph and punch things, basically.
She's
And
Clayface but ink.
She's Clayface, but looks like ink.
If Clayface had the symbiote on him,
Yes.
that would be this.
And was an attractive woman.
Yes.
That's this. And she just works for her powers, like destroying the competition. I do like that the competition is Fox Tekka, which is Lucas Fox.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Like, Lucius Fox. He, like, started his own company.
Lucas Fox.
Lucas Fox.
Which is cool. That's a fun little world building thing.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that's all she is. She's a thug. She ends up getting beaten because she tracks Terry and Bruce back to the Batcave.
Which I do like that part.
I do like that, and Bruce ends up using, or like giving Terry the freeze gun, like Mr. Freeze's freeze gun,
yeah.
to
and they
freeze her,
freeze her.
which is cool.
Because Bruce, it's established that he has like memorabilia of his past villains stored in his Batcave, so he actually uses one of them.
This is where we also get like reintroduced to Barbara Gordon as the commissioner, because at the end of the episode, he calls her and she's like, figured I'd be hearing from you. And he's like, yeah, like there's this new guy, he's Batman now, haha. And he's outside your window right now, and she looks outside and like Terry has dropped off ink in the frozen ice block.
Yeah.
And Bruce is like, you might want to put it on ice. And then like the episode ends.
Yeah. Other than that, there's probably not too much more to talk about for this episode.
No.
We will move right on to Meltdown. This is the Mr. Freeze final episode.
So, Meltdown. I liked Meltdown as a character arc and as like a character development. I like the fact that they brought Mr. Freeze back. He was just a head in a jar at the beginning of this episode, and they re-gave him a body. So the goal was to try and help Powers regain a new body. So they tested it on Mr. Freeze first. And when he came back as a human, like regardless of his suit, regardless of everything going on, he had a lot of repentance. He was trying to do right compared to some of his wrongs in his past, and I really like that about him. It's unfortunate that we'll talk about soon how things ended.
Yeah.
But I mean, as a character plot, as a character arc, like I like the fact that if given a second chance, because we talked about him being more of a human than a villain, he could get over some of the things he do and be like, yeah, I did wrong. Let me try and fix that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree for the most part. I just don't like how it kind of devolves into he just once again puts on a Mr. Freeze suit and like is his own demise in the end. Because as we said, he dies. He straight up dies in this episode.
Yes.
I just wish they could have sent him off without killing him off, like without retracting his character a little bit.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
No, I would have been okay with that as well if somehow he like got through that and then just said like I'm never putting on the suit again and goes off and does his thing. Like I would have been cool with that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I do like probably my favorite scene in this whole episode is when he's at the graveyard and like there's some assassin that came to kill him, and it turns out it's just some schlub that like he ruined his life years earlier, but like he gives him like forgiveness and he's like, no, like
doesn't really make sense because he's been frozen since when? The animated series timeline?
Yeah, so this guy must have been like a teenager at the time, basically.
Yeah, I guess.
But like,
oh, actually, I think that is what happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that's basically what that is. But yeah, I mean I do think it's cool that like Bruce is like suspect of him the whole time. Like that's a very Bruce Wayne thing. If he's like, I don't trust.
It's like the Riddler's reform.
Yeah, exactly.
This is his Riddler's reform episode.
Yeah.
But now that you bring that up, I love that because Terry's like, what are you talking about? Like this guy's a normal guy. Like he's fine. Like he's doing right. And Batman's like, no, like don't trust him. He's evil. He'll double cross you. And Terry's like, what the hell's wrong with you?
I do like that. How Terry has no context of what he used to be. So he's like, I don't see what the fuck you're talking about with this dude.
And it's like the first hint for Terry that like Batman's senile and like kind of off his rocker a little bit. He's like, why are you so suspect of everything and everyone? Like not everyone's after you.
Yeah, it's classic.
Yeah.
Nah, it's cool. It's a nice.
Yeah, I like it better than his first episode.
Me too.
Me too. I agree.
Me too. Now we'll move on to the next one we watched, which was Shriek.
Yes.
So Shriek is like this sound engineer guy who has this suit that lets him like use sound vibration to destroy things, basically. And basically, he's hired once again by Powers to try and level old Gotham so they can like build more stuff. Basically,
Yes, because the shareholders and Bruce will not allow him to destroy
Specifically,
old Gotham. So he's like, well, screw it. If I can't do it legally, I'm just going to make the sound engineer just level the city.
Yeah.
Because then they have no choice and they'll have to let me build.
There's lots of cool stuff in this episode. Like, for example, Bruce ends up getting put in the hospital, but the sound engineer guy, Shriek, like, puts this like super small microchip on him where he can put sound waves directly into his head. And so he starts talking to Bruce and pretending to be like a voice in his head, telling him to like jump out a window, and like so he gets put in the psych ward because everyone thinks he's losing his mind. Like,
you can't hear the voices?
Mm-hmm. He's like he literally goes, the voices, shh, listen, and then the like nurse is like, okay,
we'll help you, Bruce. Don't worry.
And this is when he's like, somehow I knew the voice wasn't mine because it kept calling me Bruce in my own head.
I don't call myself
Bruce.
I call myself Batman.
I love it because he's like, yeah, the voice kept calling me Bruce. Or it's like, okay, yeah. At the end of the episode, Terry's like, how'd you know you weren't just going insane? And he's like, Bruce is like, well, first of all, I know I'm not insane. And Terry's like, I really hope you have a better reason. And he's like, yeah, well, the voice kept calling me Bruce. In my mind, that's not what I call myself.
Yeah, and then
Terry's like, what? And then there's like the music sting, and then Terry's like, oh, but that's my name now.
Yes.
I was like, that's cool. That's a nice little fun end of the episode.
No, I'm really glad they did it that way instead of Bruce saying like, oh, I call myself Batman. Like, I love how they kind of transitioned it.
Me too. It's fun. But I also like, so like one of the major fights in this takes place at the Monarch Theater, which is like so important to Bruce, and it gets destroyed obviously because it's in old Gotham. That's cool. I also like how Terry does the thing, like Bruce, as we talked about, has this underworld character that he plays called Matches Malone, and like in the show sometimes he does that. We didn't see any episodes with it, but he'll show up and be like, hey, I'm Matches Malone. And like Terry intuitively also does that in this episode because he shows up to Shriek's office with like a pizza, and he's like, yeah, I got a pizza. I don't know, does someone order a pizza?
Person.
Yeah, too big for one person. And then he starts being
Have you ever shared a pizza with your delivery guy?
Never.
I'm open.
I'm not.
Free pizza?
He's got to go to the next delivery.
Yeah. What I love is like after he invites him in and Terry's trying to like get intel. He's like, so I heard something about sound vibration waves. You know anything about that, mister?
Classic conversation starter.
And Shriek immediately is like, oh, this is Batman. Like, obviously, but I love that because it's like he's doing the Bruce thing, but he's so bad at it because like, he doesn't know how it works whatsoever.
And I kind of love that for Terry as a character as a whole, that he's not a detective.
No.
He's not even really that bright in the grand scheme of things.
Yes.
He's a different Batman.
He is a very, very different Batman, and honestly, it's kind of the Batman that is needed for that universe. But it's just the fact that he makes those kind of silly mistakes because he's not on the same level as Bruce, as he shouldn't be.
He's young, he's brash, he just like wants to get out there and do the thing. He's like, he's an idiot. But yeah, I mean, I think the best parts of this episode for me are the conversation with Bruce at the end about like, that's in my mind, that's not what I call myself.
Yeah.
But then also the climax of this episode, Shriek develops this technology that can like mute an environment by canceling out the noise. And so the climax of this, Shriek turns that on, and there's just no sound. They just fight in no sound.
It's cool.
It is like really it completely. Cool. But then like Terry electrifies it, and it like explodes, and so Shriek then just becomes deaf at the end of the episode.
Yeah. Oh, that was a nice twist.
Which is also cool because it's like this audio engineer is now deaf. It's like
it literally ruins his life.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what he's trying to do to everyone else. So.
Yeah.
Up next was The Winning Edge. This one's cool because at Terry's school there are these drugs going around called slappers that like you slap on your arm and it makes you like kind of roids you out. It makes you kind of like super hyper and strong. And I mean there's not too much to it. There's basically a whole plot where Terry's mom thinks that he's on slappers. Mm-hmm. But Terry, through working with Bruce, ends up finding out that these slappers are the same compound that like Bane was using back in the day called Venom. So he goes to track down Bane. And it turns out Bane is just an old man on like a feeding tube because he was so like dependent on Venom that it ruined his life. Yeah, I mean the only like I really like this episode. I watched it a lot as a kid. My only frustration is just that at the end, the big final boss was just like the guy that was helping Bane out. Yeah. Like I thought there would be more of like a reveal there, more of a setup. Maybe it would have been Harry's high school friend that was addicted to slappers. Maybe he would have to fight him at the end. the fact that it was just like Bane's helper guy that we saw in one scene where he was like, Bane's in that room, and then like he just is the villain at the end, that seemed kind of lame to me. But I like the plot of it, of like Bane returning and all that. I think it's cool.
I remember you telling us a little bit about how in Batman Beyond they were really trying to focus more on like the high school scene,
yes,
like the personal scenes. And for me, for this episode, it killed it for me. The whole like his mother thought he was on drugs thing, and the whole like teenage like angst of, oh, you know, let's go rob a jewelry store so we can go buy more slappers and stuff like that. And
I get it. Like, it's very after school special vibes.
it is.
Like, don't do drugs, kids. But like, I still like it. Like, I get what you're saying, but I do still enjoy it. Like, despite that.
I liked it because it's one of the few episodes in Beyond where we see where are they now for an old villain.
Yes, and I get that. And I don't know, like you even said, like the big climactic final boss fight, he never even really beats him. The guy just kind of ODs.
Yeah, that final boss fight's really the worst part of the whole thing for me. It just doesn't really tie together.
Did we need a villain to fight?
No, like,
this episode?
I almost kind of wish the Bane reveal was the end. Like, he goes to Bane's lair, and he's like, and now we got the big fight, but then it's actually a subversion, and it's like, oh no, Bane is now a weakling. Like, that would have been cool, and just have it end there on a character moment. But like, no, he's gotta punch a guy.
Yeah.
Oh
well, it wasn't it for me. I don't know.
Spellbound.
Spellbound was a good one.
I love this. Spellbinder is my favorite Batman Beyond villain.
He is really good. He is a returning classic. He's,
this is the first of 3 Spellbinder ones that we watched.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Spellbinder is sort of like their version of a Mad Hatter. Mm-hmm. He has a really dynamic, cool looking outfit. He looks like a horror villain because he's like all like, he doesn't have any eyes, or he's just this big lanky dude in like orange and black.
Yeah.
And he has this weird device that he opens his hand and it comes out and it like flashes. But basically what it does is like implant
suggestive like thoughts.
Well, like virtual reality, like a virtual reality simulation, but in your head. So like what you would see in the current day if you had like virtual reality like visor on, but like it's actually playing out in your head. And the whole like plot of it is he is a high school guidance counselor who is basically finding out...
He's a therapist.
Therapist who's finding out which of his students have access to like goods, and then like plays on their like inner thoughts with these like visuals.
Yeah.
And then uses them to steal for him and bring it back to him. But they don't know they're doing it because it's all like virtual reality and they think they're doing something else.
Yeah. No, him as a character is just really cool. Like all of the episodes that he takes part in is just, I love the mystery, the ambiance. Mm-hmm. I love like the visual aspect. Like he was a very solid character throughout Beyond as a whole.
I also like how each one of his episodes evolves. Like he's always doing something different. But this first one I think is cool. It's very simple. It's just like he's trying to steal. He's using other people to steal for him.
Yeah.
And I like that he's both Mad Hatter and Scarecrow kind of, because Scarecrow was a psychology prof and he's a psychologist at the school.
Right. Right.
And so he's like a really nice amalgamation of both characters.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool.
No, I like him. Was this the one as well where he had Terry like fighting the zombies out in the forest?
Yes.
And it's just it goes to show like scenes like that. I really liked that scene. Cool. Like that was really cool. And I love he's just Batman's like, no, I'll tell you what to do. Like just listen to me. And I think Spellbinder like threw a rock or like a big log at him, and Batman's like, Bruce. Yeah. Sorry, Bruce is like, look out! And I was like,
hitting him.
What kind of guidance is that?
Yeah, I like this one because it's about this guidance counselor who's like using kids for his own advantage. It's like that's really creepy.
It is creepy, but it's cool.
Yeah, it is very cool.
Creepy but cool.
Yes.
Next is Disappearing Ink.
Ink Part 2.
We watched this episode for one scene, okay?
Yeah.
Look, this episode is kind of funny because basically the guy that is in charge of the maintenance of where ink is stored and kept on ice. Yeah, he's like in love with her, but he's like a weirdo.
It is funny.
Anyway, so he gets fired, so he's like, fuck this. So he like releases her, and so she is spending her time with him, and he's like whipped on her because he wants to be like her. Which doesn't really... We don't need to get into the details of that. He's just like an idiot. This episode's cool for one reason, which is that at the beginning of the episode, Bruce is taking Terry on a tour of the Batcave, and he shows him like a big mech suit, which is, I think, maybe this universe's version of the Dark Knight Returns, like, mech suit. And he basically says, like, yeah, this was a cool mech suit, but the last time I used it, it really strained my heart. Like, I almost died. So, like, I can never use it again, or I will probably die. And then, like, the whole episode happens, and basically, Ink captures Terry, but she knows that there's another guy he works with because of the first episode. So, she says, like, you need to come get him. So, Bruce shows up in, like, a trench coat, and Ink's like, aha, I got you. And he reveals that he's actually wearing the mech suit. And you get the OG Batman the Animated Series theme song, but played on, like, electric guitar. And it's just awesome. Like, it's such a wonderful payoff. Such a great character moment, because, again, he thinks he's probably going to die. Like, he knows the last time he used the suit, it almost killed him. But, like, that's how much belief he has in, like, Terry being the new Batman, and, like, how important it is to him that he's like, this is what I gotta do. It's cool.
It's great.
It's cool. Otherwise, the episode fucking sucks, but it's cool.
I mean,
I'm glad you showed it to us for that one.
Yeah.
I did like the subplot for the fact of, like, the running joke where the random engineer guy that was taking care of Ink as she was frozen, he would talk to her every single day, not knowing that she could hear him. And then when he unfroze her, she's like, yeah, I could hear you every day and you're really annoying. And then after he, like, got tricked because she injected him and he turned into, like, goop instead of, like, ink, and he couldn't control it like her, he was, like, he was put in a container where she was being kept as well, like, earlier.
Yeah.
And then there was a new engineer that was, like, watching over him, and she would do the same thing and just ramble on about her life.
Yeah.
And you could just tell he's just like, just kill me. Just end it. Like, I can't do this.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a fun little character. He gets a little character arc, too.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fun. It's nice.
Overall, it was okay.
Yeah, it's fine. It's better than the first Ink episode, mostly because of that one Batman moment.
Yeah.
Next one, A Touch of Carrare. Okay, long story short, Barbara Gordon, the commissioner, is dating the DA, which is definitely illegal, but he's running for re-election, and some guy has hired this assassin to kill him. Carrare, and she's a badass.
She's basically like the League of Shadows, right?
Yeah. And basically Bruce tells Terry, like, no one from this league has ever failed a mission, and if they do, that means that they become the new target. And so Bruce and Terry work to stop Barbara's husband from getting assassinated, and she, like, reluctantly works with them because she's like, I really don't want you to keep doing Batman stuff, but if you have to, please. And and they stop, and she is now the next target. She shows up later in the show, but I mean,
okay. This is one of my least favorite episodes, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it was fine. Like, it was a good adventure. I don't care so much about her being, like, the last of the League of Shadows or League of Assassins or whichever of the two she's from.
Yeah.
I mean, even at the end, like, her being hunted, I'm like, cool, but that doesn't really resolve everything. But at the end of the day, she didn't really cause much turmoil anyway. So, I don't know. She was okay. She also seemed a little out of place for such a futuristic setting because she was so old school. Which makes sense for the League of Shadows because that's how they are.
Yeah.
But it also, again, just didn't make a ton of sense. Like, she was being shot at with, like, I don't know if they're lasers or bullets. They look like lasers, but when they hit people, they don't do anything.
You know what would have been cool?
What?
If, because the League of Shadows in, like, the present day timeline is out of the past.
Mm-hmm.
Out of the past.
It
would be cool if the Beyond timeline League of Shadows was like they dress like modern day.
Yeah,
they're like just that much.
Like they're just that much behind it.
See, that would be really cool. But yeah, like they're shooting lasers or whatever, and she's like deflecting it just with a sword, like a sharp sword, but just a sword.
No, but it's the sharpest sword
if
ever
you have
created.
A sharp sword, you can deflect any laser.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I could see her just like using nets and things, and it's just like very
Cleansing
outside of the
So
universe
nets,
that they've created. That's all.
No, it makes sense. I mean, I like it conceptually just because it's like I like the idea of like an assassin that will become the next target if they don't complete their mission.
Yeah. That is cool.
That's cool.
But that was also like one line
That's
out of a
like
20-minute episode.
It's one concept, and then
They should have focused the episode on her failing more early and then having to resort to Batman for help because she's being hunted by the
That would have been
100%.
cool.
Because it also then leads to the Two-Face problem of like, how many times do you get to flip your coin? Because it's like, she fails at the beginning of the episode. She fails. Like, the first thing that happens is she tries to kill him and she doesn't. Okay,
When do you officially fail?
When do you actually fail your mission? Yeah. It's like, it's same with Two-Face, where in the Two-Face episode, he's like, do I go inside? Flip? No. And then the next day, do I go inside? Flip. Yes! It's like, well, eventually if you flip it enough times, you're gonna get the answer you want. Like, I don't know.
What would happen if Two-Face's coin landed on the width of the coin?
Oh, I don't know.
He would just implode.
Yeah, exactly. Alright, next up, the season 1 finale, Ascension.
Oh yeah.
I really don't like this episode, personally.
I kind of liked
Really?
it.
I kind of liked it.
To be honest.
I just don't like Blight, is my problem.
That's fair, but I really liked his son. Like, I liked the son's,
Sure.
like, development and how he manipulated Batman and, like, took over the corporation and, like, kind of helped with killing his own father. Like, I liked that kind of story plot.
Sure, that's fair.
Like, he was more interesting than his father was.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, because Blight by this point has just sort of been like this looming threat, and I am kind of happy just to be like, cool, are we done? Like,
Yeah. Well, I like Blight more than I like Powers. Like his human alter.
yeah, well, because Blight is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, so it's fun.
Blight
It's
is
fun. It's
silly.
comical.
Yeah, and Blight has sort of been Terry's looming threat of like the guy responsible for his dad's death, right?
Yeah.
And so
He's like the Norman Osborn.
he is. And I mean, all of this leads to just. There's only one moment from this episode even worth talking about, and it's the
But we
meme.
watched it.
Yeah, it's the meme on the internet, right? But it's
Who are you?
You killed my father.
Do you have the slightest idea how little that narrows it down?
yeah.
No,
And then
it's
Blade
really
dies.
That's really all there's to talk about though for that episode.
Yeah, there's really nothing else.
I still thought it was enjoyable.
It's fine.
It was like I thought so too. It just wasn't overly complex.
No.
Yeah. Next up in season 2, we have Hooked Up. This is the second Spellbinder episode.
So you two, I know, liked it a lot more than me. I wasn't thrilled with this episode.
Yeah, this is my favorite Spellbinder episode.
Yeah.
I think it's cool just because I like the idea that it, like, Spellbinder's not just doing the same thing. Like, every Two-Face episode, he's doing 2 themed crimes. Like, Spellbinder was doing his thing, and now he's just doing something else entirely. And actually, all the Batman Beyond villains, except for, like, maybe Ink, kind of have that arc to them. Like, even Shriek kind of has that arc to him. But, yeah, like, Spellbinder is basically getting students hooked on this, like, virtual reality living situation.
Yeah, it's like an evolution of his tech from the first episode.
And
Yeah.
it's the exact opposite of Scarecrow's toxin, where
Yes.
he depicts their perfect life, their
Oh, yeah.
ideal world.
Yeah.
The only issue is they get so hooked on the serotonin that they basically overdose on the serotonin and just become brain dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's basically a drug addiction.
It is a drug addiction.
I think it's a better drug addiction episode than Over the Edge. Or not Over the Edge, The Winning Edge.
Oh,
See,
yeah.
but like I have the same issues with this episode as I do that one. Is there's just too much teenage hijinks
But that's
throughout.
the show, Angela.
I know.
Your favorite episode of the show is about a home ec class.
Okay, but that's different. That's different because it's silly fun. This one tries to take itself very seriously, and I'm just not really for it. Like,
Okay, that's fair.
I'm
Yeah, I
okay with the
personally like that
teenage.
stuff.
Yeah, I'm okay with the teenage Batman, and I understand you're trying to give him more of a human side. You want to focus more on like the teenage life, but at the same time, it's just those parts of those episodes that I'm just like, I want to get past.
Yeah, I mean, I do get it. I get it, ultimately. But, yeah. Anyway, I mean, there's not much to say. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a continuation of
Spellbinder.
Spellbinder. It's pretty good. I mean, it's just a nice little evolution for the character.
It would have been interesting for Terry to have been hooked up. I would have liked to see his ideal life too.
Yeah.
True, yeah.
Like, would he
But we already
still
got
be
him on
Batman?
drugs.
I know. But would he still be Batman in this ideal world, or would his family be together and he just be living a normal life? Like, I would have liked to see that.
Isn't that the question? Yeah.
Right?
It's interesting. Ba-ba-ba. Okay, next we have Babel. This is
I don't remember what this one's about.
This
Babel
is
is Shriek's death.
second
Oh.
episode and also death. Yeah.
But not death.
Oh, is this the
Because
one?
He came back in the flashback.
Right.
Yeah.
An epilogue.
Yeah.
But
Is
he
this the
definitely
one
did die.
Where he scrambles the sound waves so everyone's speaking
Yes.
gibberish.
Yes.
I, again, like this conceptually for the same reason like the Spellbinder one, where it's like, it's not just Shriek blowing things up again with his sound vibrations. It's like, okay, he's doing something else with his powers now. Like
He was controlling animals.
Yes. And then, like, yeah, people can't speak to each other. They speak to each other in gibberish. It just, like, that premise is cool. Like, at the beginning when it's like, that's the premise, I'm like, oh, interesting. Like, I wonder... It just doesn't pay off in anything that interesting.
Yeah, except he dies.
Except he dies. There's a fight, and he dies. I do like that his death is because of the fact that he's deaf from the first episode, though.
Yes, that it carries over.
That carries over. I guess that's a nice storytelling.
Yeah.
Yeah, essentially, he was using the sound vibrations and the building was collapsing on top of him, but he couldn't hear the fact that the building was collapsing.
Yeah.
So he just kept going until he eventually got crushed.
This episode does have a ridiculous element, which is they're trying to figure out what tower he's broadcasting from, and then they hover to a tower that looks exactly like a tuning fork.
And Terry's like, that must be it.
Yeah. No, Bruce. It's Bruce.
Was it Bruce? I thought it was Terry
Yeah, I think
that
it's
figured
Bruce.
that one out.
This is the one with the pleasure stick, remember?
Oh my god, the pleasure stick.
Yeah, that goes nowhere.
Yeah.
So there's this stick that...
It's a tuning fork.
It's a tuning fork. And Shriek allows his henchman to use this stick because when it's hit, it emits a sound frequency that releases pleasure in the brain or something. And like this henchman is using it throughout the episode, and it's really, really weird.
Yeah.
And for all of us, we're like, okay, this stick must have some importance because they keep utilizing it. And then
There's
when
a close-up on it.
Not only do they keep utilizing it,
but then when Batman comes in the final fight,
yeah,
the henchman drops the stick, and you get a zoom in on it on the floor,
it lingers. Like they're like, remember the stick,
and then nothing comes
and
from
then it never comes back.
Never gets touched for the rest of the episode.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah.
Very odd.
Anyway, we'll move on. That one's not necessarily worth writing home about. Eyewitness. This is the final Spellbinder episode. This one's kind of cool because
I like this one a lot.
it has elements of Over the Edge in it.
Yes, Eyewitness is the one, if I remember correctly, where Terry is being framed for a murder. And
Oh, and they mess with the videotape.
yes,
Yeah. Why is it like Over the Edge though?
Because Over the Edge is sort of like the original Commissioner Gordon being like, I can't trust Batman anymore. And
Oh,
this
okay,
one is
yeah, I
kind of
guess.
Barbara. But also it's sort of cool because Barbara was the catalyst
over
for
the
the
edge.
original Over the Edge. So it's
Yeah,
nice.
true.
It's cool. Yeah, I mean, it's just another high concept one, right? Spellbinder made Barbara see Terry kill someone, which he didn't. And so Terry has to prove his innocence.
This is cool because, like you've been saying, this is another example of a villain returning, but their plan has evolved.
Yeah.
And it reminds me a lot of playing the Arkham games and going from game to game. And when they introduce most of the villains, they introduce them through their acts, and you have to figure out who's behind it. But you just have to kind of be like, which villain would be doing
Yes.
this particular thing right now? It's like, oh, it's you again.
yeah.
That's kind of cool.
And I remember us trying to figure it out, and I'm like, it can't be him again. Like he just got put away. Like this is his third episode
Yeah.
now.
Oh yeah,
So
that's
it
'cause we
kept
skipped episodes.
Yeah, and it kept me guessing for a little bit, but no, it was super interesting, and I like the fact that, like you were saying in the Ink Part 2 episode, that the only person who really trusted him was Bruce, and even though he saw Terry kill people earlier, but we're not going to talk about that.
Yeah.
But no, it was really interesting, and Terry got all the famous warning shots where they just they're like
GCPD.
freeze, and then they just start opening fire on him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is funny. Like Terry has killed people.
Terry has straight
Ups
up
and down.
murdered people
Yeah.
But
on
this is-
screen.
But this is the one where he's confronted by Commissioner Gordon. He's like, I would never
Yeah.
kill someone.
I could never kill them. And Bruce is like, I believe you, Terry.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why? You watched him say, I am Batman, and electrocute a man and then drown him in the first episode
The
of the
previous
show.
episode, Shriek died.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, that one wasn't his fault, though. It's just
Well,
the building
wasn't
killed
his
him.
fault.
I mean, he didn't save him. You know?
The building killed
The
him.
building killed him. Like Blight, like it wasn't his fault. Blight drowned.
Yeah, well, that one wasn't his fault.
Oh, well, where did we draw the line?
Yeah, I don't know. I agree. I mean, it did. Yeah, for sure. Okay. We finally made it. 3 hours. We finally made
Or
it.
we went Eggbaby.
It's time for Eggbaby.
Eggbaby.
Eggbaby
Nice.
is the pinnacle of fiction, I think.
The pinnacle. That's a quite a high regard.
So much like 2 hours ago when we were talking about Almost Got Him,
Oh my god.
and like how that episode was a kind of like sillier episode. Like Eggbaby, the premise of it is that in the future, you know, like nowadays, a lot of times in high school, there'll be a class where it's like you have to pretend to be a parent and take care of this thing and make sure it doesn't get destroyed. And sometimes it'll just be like an egg, and it's like make sure the egg doesn't get cracked. Well, in the future, which this show takes place in, they have these egg babies that are eggs, but they're like they have faces, and the mood on it can change, and it like records what's happening and whatnot.
It's a fully functional baby. It cries. It needs to be fed. It needs to be taken care of, stimulated, all that jazz.
I don't know why they wouldn't just make a baby doll instead of an egg, but...
And so the whole episode is centered around the fact that Terry is trying to stop like this one gang from committing crimes, but he also has to take care of the egg baby.
And like he could totally take care of this gang if it wasn't for the baby. This gang is just normal people.
That's what I love.
But this egg keeps sabotaging him because he has to do both.
Yeah.
And it's just like, crap, like I need to pass this class. He's failing this class. He needs an A on this assignment.
Yes.
But at the same time, he's trying to stop this gang from stealing things constantly throughout the show.
Absolutely.
They're just a bunch of chumps, but the reason is because he has to carry around this little baby.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
It's
great.
And like Bruce's frustration the whole time when he's like, Terry, like,
are you fucking kidding me?
Oh my god, I loved it when he was like, do I hear crying?
Yeah.
And Terry's like, oh yeah, it's a baby. And he goes, what? And he goes, no, turn on your camera. And he's just holding the egg baby.
It's a wide shot of Bruce at the back computer, and on the video link turns on, and there's just this egg baby there, and just like Bruce's reaction of like, what?
Yeah,
Like,
Bruce is so confused the whole
Yeah.
episode, and I love it.
Yeah, that's the difference between Bruce and Terry. Is Bruce would never do this.
No. Bruce doesn't
I love
care.
it. Oh, it's so good.
He'd just leave it with Alfred.
This was one
Yeah,
I
he
was
would.
debating showing you guys.
I'm
Because
so glad
I
you
was
did.
like, it's so silly. Again, like Almost Got Him. It could go either way. But you guys loved it. I loved it. I'm so glad. This is a fantastic episode.
When the baby's crying, and he's like, Terry, your life is not worth an egg.
It's so good. It's so good. I love everything about this episode.
Yeah, it was really fun.
I got the signal. I'm gonna follow it.
Terry, remember, it's not worth risking your life for an egg.
And he did ace the class at the very end.
Which
because
is fun.
His
Top grade.
baby was the only one that was mentally stimulated and not just physically taken care of.
Yeah.
Because
cool.
it was thrown around and flown and like all
Went
these
on an
crazy
adventure.
things.
It's a good thing they don't like analyze what happened to
Thank
him.
God there's no
Yes.
video feed with these babies.
Yeah.
I thought that was going to be the twist at the end, is that the teacher like tuned into what everything that the baby saw during the period, and all like his Batman hijinks.
That would have been fun.
But it would have been great if like the baby never saw him as Batman. She just saw the film of like the baby flying and like seeing like the cityscape and stuff. And she's like, what were you doing with this baby?
Yeah. No, it's a fantastic episode. I mean, this is just, yeah, it's so good.
This is peak Batman Beyond.
It
It
is.
is.
It was
It is.
pure humor, but it was excellent the whole time through. It was
It's-
really well executed.
It's so good. Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. Yeah, so that's the end of season 2. The last one we're going to talk about from Batman Beyond is from season 3. It's called Out of the Past. And this is one about Ra's al Ghul. Now, we didn't really talk about Ra's al Ghul in the previous series, like Batman the Animated Series. He is there as well. We get the iconic Ra's wants Bruce to take over for him. Bruce falls in love with Talia. Like, all that stuff is in Batman the Animated Series, but we didn't watch it. But, yeah. This episode, basically, Talia al Ghul, or so we think, shows up and tells Bruce,
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, and you're an old man, and why don't you come use the Lazarus Pit and be young? And Bruce decides to take it. This episode does start, though, with Bruce and Terry are seeing a play, and the play is like a fictionalized musical about Batman. And like he's singing a song about like I'm vengeance, I'm the night, I am Batman. It's so funny. It's so
is
good.
really
And
funny.
old man Bruce is just so grumpy during that entire.
He hates it. He hates
Oh,
it.
he
But
is
Terry
totally
loves
funny.
it. Terry's all
Yeah.
for it. Yeah.
Is this the episode where he tries to save someone who's like gonna be hit by a truck?
Yes.
But he
so-
realizes how much he's struggling.
Yes. So they sabotage his car. They gave it a flat tire. Like something happened. I just remember it was sabotage. So he pulls over to the side of the road, and this girl ends up like falling into traffic. I don't really remember how. And Bruce, being Bruce, goes out to save her. but is too old and like can't pull the strength to get her out of the middle of the street. So he was actually going to get hit by a truck.
Yeah.
And Terry had to come in and save him. And he goes, if you weren't there, we'd both be dead.
Yeah.
And it really started settling in. And he's like, I still want to help people, but I am physically not able to anymore.
Yep.
So he goes over this whole like thought process because he essentially at the beginning told Talia, no, like I'm not going to use the Lazarus pit. You're crazy. But after, thinking about it over and over, he wanted to go back to his youth to keep doing what he does.
Yeah.
So he eventually did go into the Lazarus pit.
It's cool.
Yeah, and he's de-aged to like maybe 50.
Yeah.
For
Yeah,
now.
he was back in his prime. Him and Terry were fighting goons side by side, which was really cool.
So that's cool because after he gets a little bit de-aged, him and Terry are hanging out. They're like working out together. I like though Bruce just like breaks the mirror at one point because he's like, this is not right. Like this shouldn't be this way. And so he decides he wants to leave, and the goons are like, no, you can't leave. Yeah, they fight the goons. Once again, we get the original animated series music cue when they're fighting the goons.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was very fun. Like Terry being like, oh, it's so cool to see you in your prime. Like, that was cool. But yeah, the big plot twist reveal is that the reason they're giving Bruce a younger body is because it's actually not Talia al Ghul. Ra's al Ghul actually created a device that lets you transfer your consciousness into another body. And so he put his consciousness in Talia's body to tempt Bruce to become younger because he always thought Bruce was like his natural successor anyway. And so this way he can put himself in Bruce's younger body and be Ra's al Ghul in Batman's body.
Running the League of Shadows.
Running the League of Shadows.
Yeah.
Now, the only thing I didn't fully understand and really didn't get, or I didn't like, I did get, is the voice change.
Yeah, me too.
Like, that's not how vocal cords work.
Yeah.
And I don't like the fact that he could just, like, on a dime go back to, like, Ra's al Ghul. Like, but with that being said, how else do you really explain it without it being really weird that it still sounds like Talia, but he's just like, I am Ra's, by the way.
I don't know. I feel like she could have just said it. She could have just been like, I am. She could have just started... Like so Ra's al Ghul in the series always referred to Batman as detective. That was always like, detective. Like that's always...
That would have been cool.
And so when his voice changed, he started speaking like Ra's. You could have just written Talia's dialogue to sound like Ra's. She could have been like, it's been me this whole time, detective. And like we all would have known what that meant. Like you didn't need his actual voice to come through her body.
Yeah.
Even Bruce could have had a moment and been like, oh, like, you've hung around your father for a long time. You're starting to sound like him kind of thing.
Yeah. It could have been more of a, exactly. Or maybe it starts to slip through.
Yeah.
And he's like, that's interesting. Like, your father used to speak to me like that.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
And then all of a sudden he'd get, like, trapped, and then he would disclose.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That would have been cool.
Yeah, the voice thing was kind of dumb. But
yeah. It's an animated show.
Yeah,
it's also... I remember laughing at the end of this because when they're back in Gotham City in the Batcave, like Bruce is already starting to de-age, and Terry's like, "Oh, it's already going away, huh?" And it's like, "Yeah, I'm sure within like a week or so it'll be back to normal." And Marco was like, he made the joke of like, "Yeah, I'm sure by 8/7 Central next week
I'll be back to my regular
Thursday
self
night
on Cartoon Network.
Yeah.
It'll be back to normal."
Oh my god.
I wish that was a line of dialogue.
So funny.
That would be so good.
But yeah, so that's the series of Batman Beyond, I guess. I hope we've conveyed it's a dope series.
Batman Beyond is great in a lot of different ways than the animated series was great.
Yes, and I think it all comes to a head perfectly in Return of the Joker. Like, that is to me the pinnacle.
Me too.
Okay, so let's talk.
Yep, Return of the Joker.
So, Angelo, you had seen this before, but not any of Batman Beyond, right?
Correct. I mean, throughout my childhood, I've probably watched this movie 3 or 4 times for some reason.
Cool.
Damn.
Yeah, so this was my only real background knowledge of Batman Beyond before jumping into the actual, episode-by-episode series.
Do you feel that it's improved by seeing the show, or do you think it's, pretty standalone? Like, that in terms of your experience with it?
I want to say it's pretty standalone. I mean, watching the episodes gave me more of an appreciation for it.
Yeah.
But you can just go right into this movie with no background knowledge and still really enjoy it. Like, it has a very good, start to finish, wrap everything up, very good storyline. But yeah, I don't think it's necessarily necessary to watch anything before this.
Yeah, it's functional. It's its own little self-contained thing.
But
Yeah. This movie, it was awesome.
It
So
was
good.
an amazing movie.
I love how like it does such a good job of tying together the entire history of the Batman animated universe, like,
and bringing it to this present/future.
That's what I mean, like flashing back to how the animated series tied up. Like we get to see where that Gotham started to like transform into the future, how Batman started to transform into who he is now in the Beyond timeline, what happened to the Joker as well. And it's just like, it's the best, I think it's the best stuff of both timelines that we've seen. It's also the darkest by far.
Yes.
But fitting. I like it. And it still manages to be dark without losing its sense of character. Like,
yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
Just the places it goes is at times like the darkest by far.
Sure. Absolutely.
I mean, you even was talking to me about how there's two versions of this movie.
Yeah.
One where they showed additional dark scenes and one that they couldn't actually show on television.
Yes, which we'll get into. Well, maybe we can get into now sort of what we're talking about. But basically the premise of this is that throughout the entirety of the 3 seasons of Beyond, the closest we ever got to the character of the Joker was just that Joker's gang. And in this, the Joker has returned, you know? Like, as if he's fucking Palpatine. And
at a young age, too. Like, Bruce is still ancient, but this Joker is, like, middle-aged, like 40s, 50s. So it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, and everyone's like, what's happening? How could this be the Joker? But Bruce is like, again, he's analyzing it with science. And the back computer is like,
this is the
voice
Joker.
Waves, they match. This is the Joker. This is the Joker. And Bruce is like, what? But everyone knows it can't be. Everyone is like, Bruce is like, no, it can't be. And Barbara Gordon is like, no, it can't be.
But no one will tell Terry why.
Exactly. And so there's a lot of like intrigue going on there. And ultimately Terry sits down with Barbara, and Commissioner Gordon herself, and he's like, you have to tell me, why can't this be the Joker? Bruce will not tell me about the Joker. What the hell happened? And so we flash back to what I believe to be the furthest point in the animated universe pre-Batman Beyond, like we talked about, where basically the Joker kidnapped Tim Drake, the second Robin, and so Barbara, Batgirl at the time, and Batman track him down, and it turns out that Harley and the Joker have, using weird torture and whatnot, transformed Tim Drake into
Joker Jr.
A little Joker Jr. who's dressed up like the Joker and who's laughing psychotically and who's just broken. And this like makes Batman snap, and he effectively like gets into this fight with the Joker where he is straight up ready to kill this man. Like, he is done and he can't do it anymore. And ultimately it ends with the Joker and Batman sort of at odds with each other, and this little Joker Jr. shows up holding this prop gun, and the Joker is saying like, okay, like shoot Batman, whatever, and he goes to shoot, and it's like one of those guns where like it just pops out and it says bang, and then ultimately like he's like trembling, like little Tim Drake is trembling, and he's like laughing crying. But he's crying, and like he's fucked up it, and he ends up like at the last minute like moving the gun to the Joker himself, and he shoots the little thing that says bang out, and it's like pierces the Joker in the chest, and it kills the actual Joker.
And his last line is like, that wasn't funny at all.
Yeah, great last line.
Yeah.
And he dies, and Tim Drake, little Joker-fied Tim Drake, is just like crying and shaking, and like that's like
broken.
That's where we leave it. Horrifying.
Absolutely.
And also, again, just to touch on the fact that Tim Drake in this universe is Jason Todd. Like, I don't know why they didn't just call him Jason Todd, but he is. And very famously in comics, Jason Todd was beaten to death by the Joker and killed. And would eventually then come back as the character Red Hood, who is like an anti-hero. This is just their version of that story. This is their death in the family. And it's kind of, again, like, in order to get around the censors, they did something that's actually more horrifying than if you just beat him with a crowbar. Like, him beating him with a crowbar is not as horrifying as him Joker-fying him and making him this little demented kid.
Mentally break down as he kills his father figure in his head.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, and then in the present timeline, Terry is sort of like trying to figure it out, and he's like, maybe adult Tim Drake has something to do with this. So he goes and finds adult Tim Drake, and he basically says like, after that, I quit. I went to therapy. It took years, but I kind of am like a better person now. I'm in a better place. And he says to Terry the same thing of like, eventually everyone leaves, like Bruce, you're going to have to as well. Barbara, I think this is the episode where she says...
Things changed.
Things changed. I think she brings that line back, but I also think this is where she's kind of like, you think you chose this, but you didn't. Like, again, all those themes from Old Wounds are all still present here with the rest of the Bat family, which explains...
It's so great.
It explains why at the beginning of Beyond, Bruce is alone. And because, it's so good. But yeah, then the ultimate sort of plot twist is that Tim Drake was never... It wasn't just that the Joker tortured him, but he actually like embedded a part of his consciousness in Tim.
Through a microchip.
Through this microchip, which is actually explained in the Justice League show as part of this thing called Cadmus Tech. It doesn't matter. But that's what it is. So yeah, and then the resolution is Batman and Tim Drake now, who has become the Joker, they have to fight. Yeah, so
a question I had was, because at the end he appears as the Joker.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is that just like a hologram? Like he really is Tim Drake, but Batman just sees the Joker?
I think it's more like he is having a because the Cadmus tech is this weird genetic altering tech that again is explained in the Justice League show.
So it actually changes you?
It actually changes you. So he's literally, his facial structure changes. His skin turns white. He literally has a genetic change.
And that's how the voice match actually matches. But I get what you're saying too, because it doesn't make sense that his clothes and face changes. But I guess if you think about future tech, anything's possible, and that's the only reason they can kind of get away with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, even because the tech was implanted in Tim Drake in the animated series era.
Yes,
but I think in the Cadmus arc... Well, but remember, that flashback would have taken place after Justice League.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So what I'm saying is it makes sense of why Batman would be what could possibly be the reason Joker's back?
Yes.
And why he wouldn't immediately think of Cadmus is because it happened... It's not something he just did.
Right.
It's something that happened years ago.
Yes, exactly.
A traumatic event that he wants to forget anyway.
And why would he ever think that Joker would even have access to Cadmus? Because he didn't in the show. So it's more like he just stole the tech and used it.
And the other thing too is why now was brought up a couple times, and Joker does take the time to explain that too. That he can't just do this. It's been a very slow and gradual process that. At first, Tim could only hear his voice in his head.
Yeah.
Then he could only take over for a couple of minutes, then a couple of hours, and by the time they face off, he almost has complete control of Tim at this point.
Yeah.
So it does show that it's taken years and years for his consciousness to start taking over.
It's cool. It's really cool. Yeah, I mean, it's just an awesome movie. It also sort of the idea that maybe the Joker gang... I had always assumed the Joker gang was just they knew of this guy named the Joker, and so they called themselves the Joker. But if the Joker himself has been able to pop out, in small increments over the years, maybe he himself, Tim Drake Joker, did inspire the Joker gang at some point that we see in the show.
He's working with them in this movie.
Exactly.
Correct.
And that's never confirmed that maybe he inspired them in the first place, but
it makes sense.
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Everything about this is awesome. My only slight gripe, and it's more just because it's an animated movie and obviously they didn't want to extend the length too much, but Terry goes to adult Tim, and adult Tim is no, I'm fine. Everyone leaves Batman at some point. Don't worry about me. And then he goes back somewhere else, and then he's actually, let me go check on adult Tim again. And then that's when it's revealed that he's the Joker. I just feel it was a little bit of those two scenes were too close to each other. In the edit, I kind of wish he had visited adult Tim maybe a bit earlier in the movie, and we rule him out a bit earlier, and then almost maybe he visited adult Tim before he knew about the flashback. And then after he found out about the flashback and what happened to Tim, then he was wait a minute, fuck, and then he visits Tim. And then Yeah.
I agree too, because it doesn't give you much time to like ponder that thought.
Exactly.
By the time you even start to think about it, it's already happening.
Yes.
So I get that they're kind of close, but
that's really my only gripe. Like, and it's, you know, it makes sense too. Again, like in the edit, and this movie was, like we talked about, a little bit re-edited because the death of the Joker was deemed too gruesome. So pretty much any copy you get on DVD or Blu-ray, like it'll probably say unrated or director's cut on it. It's just the original version. The version that was released on TV, on Cartoon Network, the death of the Joker wasn't Joker-fied Tim Drake shooting him. It was like an electrocution or something. I forget all the exact details of it.
because that's easier to
Yeah,
watch.
yeah, that's way
It's
easier.
actually a little bit more gruesome.
But is that not the running theme that we've come across?
Exactly. Actually, maybe after we're done, I can pull it up and we'll watch the
Okay, sure.
edited version just so you guys can see. But yeah, I mean, so I know there was a little bit of like, maybe the edit wasn't necessarily like easily finalized on this, so that might explain why those two Tim Drake scenes are like right next to each other.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that.
Overall, great. I mean, watching it as a kid for myself, it's what got me so interested in Batman Beyond.
Yeah.
I thought that was only it. I thought it was like a standalone movie. I didn't know there was
Yeah.
a series at the time, being young. But I really liked it. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, it also works, like, if you haven't watched the series, it's just like, and this is all the context you have for the Batman Beyond world. It's just like, here's a movie that pitches, what about the future of Gotham?
It does.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. It's really good on its own.
But then, like you said, if you have watched Batman Beyond, or some of it like us, it's the whole time you're wondering, like, what happened to the Joker?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
this answers that question as well.
Yeah.
It's so cool. It's wonderful. Yeah, it's just
It's
a
great.
wonderful little piece of art. Yeah, and it is the definitive end of the timeline.
Well,
Except for...
One extra episode that we watched.
the episode that ruined it all.
And it is truly, like, to me and to most people, not canon. Like,
100% canon.
because it is the very last thing. Okay. As I mentioned, the Justice League show was technically the last thing released in this universe. Batman Beyond was on air on TV before Justice League was on air. Justice League was on air after. Now, in any rewatches that you do, I would highly recommend watching Justice League first and then Beyond, and ending with Return of the Joker. But because Justice League was the last thing released, when Justice League was coming to a close, they were like, we need an epilogue episode that kind of ties the generations of Batman together, that ties Batman the Animated Series and Justice League and Batman Beyond. We need to tie it all together in one final... This
But
is
it wasn't
the
even
end.
the finale of the Justice
Yeah,
League.
well, that's a whole other thing. But, like, then they did another season of Justice League, which is ridiculous. Unless the DVD box sets are wrong, which maybe they are.
I don't know.
But
I don't think they would be that wrong.
anyway, basically the premise of this episode, called Epilogue, is that a now even older Terry McGinnis, an adult-age Terry McGinnis, who is taking care of a 100-year-old Bruce Wayne.
Has to literally be 100 years old.
He is, like, geriatric.
Like, it's crazy.
Falling apart.
Yeah, because he's already falling apart in his 80s. He has to be 100 now.
Yeah. Bruce, he needs a kidney replacement or something.
Yeah.
And
By
Terry,
the way, that plot element is just glossed over.
completely.
Oh, completely. You can almost miss it.
Okay, so here's how it starts, actually. So in the Justice League show, Amanda Waller, who we know is running the Suicide Squad, in the show, she ran Katniss. She ran this secret organization, okay? In Justice League proper. In this epilogue episode, she is also old and hanging out. And older Terry McGinnis, Batman Beyond, shows up to confront her. And you're like, what? And he explains to her that Bruce needed a kidney transplant. And Terry got tested to see if he could help. And it turns out he is a 100% exact genetic match. The odds of that being 1 in whatever, unless you're relatives, at which point she admits that yes, you are the biological son of Bruce Wayne.
Dun, dun, dun.
Now, here's the thing, is it gets even stupider. Because Bruce Wayne did not, like, hook up with Terry's mom, and it turns out, like, that he was actually his son.
No, when Terry confronted Bruce, Bruce is like, what the hell are you talking about?
Well, no, but he doesn't. He confronts Bruce, and he's like, I'm your son, right? This was all your plan? And Bruce just doesn't say anything. Bruce is just like...
Yeah, well, he basically confirms it, though.
Yes!
So,
but he
which
doesn't...
leads us to believe that he impregnated his mom, like he is just his actual father in like the normal way.
Yes, but no, it's even stupider because they knew fans would hate that. So instead, what happens is Amanda Waller, at one point when dealing with the Justice League, she used to hate Batman, right? But then she had this change of heart, which, by the way, I want to come back to because, like, the flashback scene that shows her change of heart is, like, everything I love about what we've talked about for the last 3.5 hours. It is a wonderful fucking Batman character moment. So out of place in this episode, though. But basically, there's this wonderful Batman character moment that makes Amanda Waller go, well, the world is going to always need a Batman. And so when Batman started getting older, she, using her resources and whatever, took Bruce's DNA and then found a suitable couple and gave the father, during what was supposed to be a flu shot,
Bruce's DNA.
Bruce's DNA.
So illegal. Like, so fucked up.
And then they had a son, who is Terry. And then Amanda was going to take it one step further.
And kill his
parents after they saw a movie. And who did she hire to kill his
Oh,
parents?
I forgot about this.
She hired the Phantasm, Andrea, from Batman Mask of
Who
the...
is also ancient now.
Because we have to tie it all together. And the Phantasm says yes, but at the last second doesn't do it. Because why? Because we need to see the Phantasm. That's
Change
why.
of
But she's only like 50.
No, she's old.
I think she's supposed to be older,
she
but like...
looks like she's only 50. She should be like 100, like Bruce.
Yes,
Yeah.
but they portray... Oh, but wait. Technically, this is when Terry was a kid. So technically, I guess that makes
so
sense.
she should be 80.
Yes, she should be 80. But Phantasm is like, no, I don't want to do it. Because Batman doesn't have to be birthed by tragedy. And, like, it's not about the tragedy. It's about, like, the person. Except Terry's dad did die, and that is why he became Batman. So that
Through
completely
tragedy.
goes out the window.
Yeah.
Completely. So, basically, this episode exists in an attempt, and I get it, to tie everything together, to be like, this is the end. Like,
But I don't get it because this is from the Justice League show, and this is just a Batman Beyond episode out of nowhere.
Yes. I think it would have been fitting, instead of doing this, if they just made, like, a final movie. Like, a final movie that didn't tie into anything necessarily.
Yeah. Why have this in the Justice League series?
I've always been confused about that as well. And it ends. Terry goes back to Bruce, and he's like, you know what? Now that I know that this was all genetic manipulation and you literally knew nothing about it, I guess we're cool.
And Bruce is like, have some soup.
And he's like, no. And he's like, you're stubborn. And he's like, just like my old man. And then it ends with a shot. So that the first episode of Batman the Animated Series, the first episode of this universe, in On Leather Wings, is there's a blimp flying, and this thing flies past. And it's Man-Bat, we find out later. This thing flies past. And the guys in the blimp go, what's that? And, like, that's the first shot. And the last shot of this episode, which is supposed to be, even though it's not, the last shot of the DC Animated Universe is Terry and his Batsuit flying by a blimp. And they go, oh, what's that? And the Batman music plays, and it ends.
And the other thing that I know I mentioned when we watched it, and I want to mention again, Terry's parents had 2 sons.
Oh yeah, Terry's a brother.
So, like, is his younger brother also Bruce's kid, like, biologically? Right? So, did she accidentally make 2 Batmans?
Okay,
but also, why did she only do this for Batman? Amanda Waller. Why not Superman? Why not, like, all the Justice
League? No, because
League?
Dan, remember, Batman is the sickest superhero of all time.
It's because there's only a show called Batman Beyond.
Yeah, exactly.
She even called it the Batman Beyond project.
Oh, no, that was the most insulting part. Yeah, was that this whole project was called Batman Beyond. Fuck off. That was so stupid.
This is why you can't go backwards with your writing. You can't create something and then tie in, how did we make that happen? Because it just doesn't work.
This is the worst retcon maybe ever.
Because I told this to you guys, but I'm just going to say it on the mic. Like, the whole time we were watching Beyond, I was like, how refreshing is it that there's this new Batman that has no previous tie to Bruce Wayne, especially not, like, genetic tie.
Yes.
And also not even, like, he's not even like a Robin where he was adopted as Bruce Wayne's, like, son or whatever.
Yeah.
He's just this, like, fresh guy who himself enters the world of Batman. And then this comes in and just, like, fucking ruins all of that.
And it's so interesting because the Joker movie did such a good job of tying loose ends.
Yes, and ending the universe.
This 20-minute episode created more plot holes than the entire series of Batman Beyond.
That was a funny thing too. Is okay. So before we watched this episode, Marco gave us a 40-minute dissertation
of how much this 20-minute episode.
For this 20-minute episode, his explanation, his intro was longer than the episode itself.
Yeah.
And Angela and I were sitting there like, "Wow, this sounds incredibly dumb." And then we're like, "This is like a dual-length episode, right?" And you're like, "No, this is they crammed this all into a regular length, 20-minute cartoon episode."
So somehow they had the present time for a flashback, time for like an explanation, and then tried retying it.
And it's all framed as a conversation between Amanda Waller.
Conversation.
Do you want to talk about that scene now that is actually good Batman?
Go ahead and talk about good Batman.
And this is a scene that I'm sure you have seen clipped out on the internet, because this is the classic people on Twitter, this is my Batman scene, right? But basically, the scene that convinces Amanda Waller that there needs to be a Batman, and that when Bruce dies one day, there needs to be a successor, and why she starts the whole Batman Beyond project, is during an adventure where Amanda Waller fucked up and she gave this gang superpowers, which this actually ties into the Royal Flush Gang, which are villains in Batman Beyond, which we didn't watch, but it doesn't matter. There's this one member called Ace in the Royal Flush Gang who has these like reality-altering powers, and the Justice...
I might have asked this before. Is that how he named his dog?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe.
Because, like, that can't be just a coincidence, right?
Wow, it might be.
Anyway, sorry to derail.
That's actually kind of sweet if that is how he named his dog, based on what happens in the scene. But, yeah, so basically Amanda Waller shows up to the Justice League, and she's like, I fucked up. Here is a device that will safely kill Ace. And she's like, we have to kill her because if we don't and she dies, she's going to go nuclear, and like who knows what her powers will do. And everyone in the Justice League is like, oh fuck. And Batman is like, okay, I'll do it. And everyone's like, what? And he's like, I do it. And so he takes the device, puts it in his utility belt, goes to find Ace. And Ace is just sitting like on this little swing set in this area. And Batman walks up, and she has like all these powers. She can read minds and stuff. And so she's like, she gave you a device to kill me, but you're not going to use it, are you? And he's like, no. And he takes the device out and throws it on the floor. And Ace is just like, I'm scared. And Batman's like, or she's like, I'm going to die, aren't I? And Batman's like, yeah. And she's like, I'm scared. And he's like, it's okay. And he just sits with her and basically just holds her hand. And then eventually you just see like all the illusions and stuff like disappear, like Ace is dead, and Batman walks out like carrying her body. It's actually very similar to Arkham City.
Yeah.
When he walks out with the Joker. And yeah, and it's just like, it's just such a great, touching Batman moment where he's like, no, I'm obviously not going to kill it. My whole thing is I don't kill people. No.
Especially not going to kill a kid.
Yeah, and he's like, fuck that. Like, it doesn't, fuck the repercussions of it. Like, I'm going to be a good person. Like, that's fundamentally what I am, is about, like, trying to help people and be a good person. And that's what made Amanda Waller change her tune and be like, I need to make Batman Beyond.
Not only, she could have just changed her mind and be like, I don't hate Batman anymore.
Yeah.
No, I need to make another Batman. I love Batman so much.
Yeah.
I need to recreate all the tragedy and suffering that Batman has gone through and do it all over again.
Yeah. It's so bad. It sucks so much that scene is in this episode. Because it's like you can't even watch it out of context because she's narrating it. So it's like, God damn it, shut up! Like, just let me watch the moment without your fucking voice being like, and that's why I decided, like,
Project Batman Beyond.
Yeah.
It's too bad that wasn't a Justice League episode.
Yes.
That could have then been, like, re-referenced in this episode.
So you have the untainted version of
it? That, and that way that's not just, like, the first time you're seeing
Exactly.
that.
It's like a reference to something.
Yeah, that was all original stuff, which also, like, is it such an outlier for this episode.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just, it doesn't fit at all. Like,
not at all.
No.
It's so weird. It's so weird.
And Angelo, you said this, but I'm gonna echo this.
Go ahead.
I am so glad that you waited to show us that, so that we didn't set it up in our mind that Terry was the child of Bruce Wayne.
No, it would have absolutely ruined it.
It does ruin it. I mean, and that's why, because it comes at the end, you can kind of just, and it's not even attached to Batman Beyond, it's attached to Justice
Maybe
League.
that's why. They were like, we don't want to put this in Batman Beyond because it'll ruin it. Let's just throw it in this other show.
Yeah. So, like, you can just ignore it. You can just watch the 3 seasons of Beyond, watch Return of the Joker, that's it. Like, you do not need to watch this episode. It's just frustrating. And also, like, okay, so to go back to the kid thing, right? I also love, like I said, Terry choosing this life. And, like, that is what makes him the successor, as opposed to anyone else. Is, like, he wasn't drafted, he wasn't related, he fucking chose it. Like, that is very important to me. But if you wanted to do a kid story where it's actually Bruce's son, they've done that. They've done the Damian Wayne story in comics of Talia and Bruce have a child. The child is raised by the League of Assassins. He becomes the new Robin. I fucking hate him, but like, if you wanted to do that, you actually have a built-in way of doing it in Batman Beyond, because the whole premise of Beyond is that Bruce, like, Terry's cover for being Batman is that Bruce Wayne employs him, right? Like, Bruce Wayne. So you could do a thing where, like, maybe Bruce and Terry's mom, like, dated at some point when he was younger, broke up. Terry's mom gets with this other guy, and she's like, because of the timing of it, assumes that it's his son. Turns out it's actually Bruce. But, like, what I'm saying is, don't have this be a plot twist at the end of the show. Like, if you wanted to make it Bruce's son, just do it in the first fucking episode.
To get it over.
Just get it over. Yeah. Like, and just set that as the expectation, and just make a show about that. Make a show about Bruce feeling guilty, realizing that this is actually his son, and, like, that's why he gives him this job. That's why he, like, helps him be Batman. Like, I wouldn't like that as much as I like what Batman Beyond is, but at least you could then frame the entire show differently and make it about something different.
Yeah, and not just be like, hey, you know these events that you've been watching for 3 years?
Yeah, fuck you. Yeah, it's his son. Okay.
And he knew the whole time?
Well,
I
it's
guess?
undisclosed, because he doesn't...
He must have, because he was aware of what Amanda Waller did.
Yeah.
Yeah?
When he gave her his DNA, right?
Well, did she not
No, she says she
the
took
DNA?
it. She specifically says she took it. Yeah.
So,
at what point did he find out?
Well, we don't really know, because he never did answer Terry, so we don't know if he exactly knew, or if he doesn't know, or if he still doesn't know.
Maybe he's just a senile old man now. He's like, I don't know what you're saying.
I barely understand a word. Like, I don't have a hearing aid.
I need a kidney. Just whatever contextualize.
Yeah, exactly.
I just want my kidney.
Yeah, it is. I mean, for like this entire animated universe is so airtight, so character driven.
Yes.
It's baffling, this episode. Like, it is like...
I'm surprised it got okayed.
Yeah, me too. I'm like, who thought anyone would like this?
Yeah.
I don't know.
While watching Justice League, as Dan pointed out multiple times.
Yes. Well, because that's the other funny thing is, so I was too young to watch BTAS. I mean, it started in 92. We weren't even born. Or Beyond, when it was first airing. But Justice League was airing when I was at prime cartoon age.
Yeah.
So I was watching Justice League. Now, because I'm a nerd, I was getting the DVD box sets of the older shows and watching them. So by the time Epilogue happened, I was like, yeah, I know the Batman Beyond universe. If I was just watching Justice League as a standalone show, and I was like, this is it, the series finale of Justice League, and it's this fucking thing, like...
You'd be so confused.
How?
Maybe that's why they went back for another season.
It must be.
Because they ruined the finale.
I don't know. There's so many unanswered questions.
Yeah.
Garbage.
Anyway.
Should we get to our list now?
No,
we gotta do our quote.
Quote time.
Right.
So, I'll go first for this one, because it's not an Alfred quote, because he's not in this series.
Okay.
This one is from Terry, and he goes, "Sometimes I ask myself if Batman is just the suit or the man inside. Time to find out."
Nice.
That's a good one.
Mm-hmm. Because that is basically his whole, like, spiel, too, is his, like, idealism of, being Batman, but what that means to him.
Yeah.
If you're nothing without the suit.
Yeah, but
you
then...
shouldn't have it at all.
Yeah. Me? Okay. This is pretty obvious, but it's from Eggbaby. It's Bruce going, "Remember, Terry, your life is too valuable to throw away, even for an egg."
Fantastic.
Freaking Eggbaby.
I was between two. I was gonna pick the, like, how'd you know the voices wasn't in your head?
Yeah.
Because in my head, it's not what I call myself. That's cool. This is one from an episode we didn't watch, but I think it's a great quote.
okay.
So Bruce is talking to a villain, and he says, "Who are you?" And the villain says, "I'm your worst nightmare." And then Bruce says, "You have no idea what my nightmares are like."
There's so many bats.
That is such a classic old man Bruce Wayne quote.
Oh, is that Beyond?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. It's so good.
Nice.
Okay.
I have
Who
nightmares.
was the
every
villain
night.
of that episode?
I think they're called Payback. I remember, like, I saw that quote and I was like, oh yeah, I remember that quote.
Might as well just name him Vengeance at that point.
Yeah. All right.
I was like, no, I am Vengeance.
Tier list time!
All right,
Tier
Andrew, you gotta go
list.
first because your names are all different.
Yes.
So this is the game, guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
You guys can play along.
Angelo does not write episode titles. He just writes what he remembers the episodes being as. So while we go through his tier list, we're going to have to try and decipher. And just to be clear, because this is probably going to be in the second episode where we talk mostly about Beyond, this is also going to contain everything from the previous episode where we talked about Batman the Animated Series as well. This is the entire tier list
This
of
is
all
the
30
epilogue of
something.
our episodes.
Yes.
Yes.
So this is all 1 through 31 of both series kind of put together in their ranking.
And this includes
The movies.
as
Yes.
episodes.
So, starting with number 1, my top rated, it is called The Last Laugh.
Okay, so we're guessing as we go, right?
We're guessing
Are
as
you
we go.
confirming or are you just letting us guess?
I'm just going to let you guys in the
Okay.
audience guess. What
is
do you think The
fantastic.
Last Laugh is?
I would think this is Return of the Joker.
Dan is correct. It is Return of the Joker as my number 1.
Wow, how did I not? Yeah,
Fantastic
obviously, yeah.
movie.
Okay.
Amazing.
Number 2.
Number 2, Hash Slinging Slasher.
That's fantastic.
That is
That
fantastic.
that was good. That's a good one for Fantastic.
That is my Mask of the Phantasm. Honestly, the
Surprising-
movies are great.
Surprisingly, not the first SpongeBob reference tonight.
No,
Yeah.
not the first SpongeBob
It's
reference.
actually the third.
Yeah.
It's the third?
Well, Clancy Brown, but then
Oh, true, yeah.
your SpongeBob.
The paper ghost.
Yeah, the paper
Yeah,
ghost.
the Hash Slinging Slasher.
Ooh.
Okay.
Number 3 is Gotham City Metropolis.
That's Batman and Superman movie.
Yeah, which is called
World's Finest.
not called the Batman and Superman movie. But yeah, so all 3 movies are my top 3. Don't think that comes as any surprise. I mean, they were
They just
amazing.
have the most room to do stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
For development and stuff.
Yeah.
So now we start with the episodes.
This is gonna be the real. Okay.
Yes.
So number 4, I called The Mandela Effect.
What could this be?
Oh, is this Over the Edge?
This is not Over the Edge. Also think like this is my top tier episode. So
For Chance to Dream?
not for Chance to Dream.
The Mandela Effect.
Mandela Effect. If it's not the Dream ones, I don't know.
I don't know.
What is an episode where people were recalling a lot of memories?
Oh, is this Almost Got Him?
This is Almost Got 'Em. Even though it's not exactly recalling things wrong, it is wrong in the
So
sense...
you just basically put
Oh,
something
okay.
to trick us.
This is
Okay.
gonna be hard.
This
It is
gonna
going to be
tough.
hard.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah, so it's recalling things wrong because they all thought that they almost had Batman.
Okay.
No one almost has
Oh, okay, that's fine.
It's
Okay.
a little convoluted.
Batman. Number 5 is really easy. So Nightwing Takes Flight.
Okay,
Okay,
Old
yeah,
Wounds.
yeah. Old Wounds,
Correct. Number 6 is Passing the Baton.
Ooh, that's fun. Is this Rebirth?
This is Rebirth. Good
Nice.
call.
Rebirth is that high.
Yes, Rebirth.
Nice.
I'm a sucker for origin stories.
I also love Rebirth. I think
yeah.
Rebirth is of great origin.
I'm a sucker for origin stories because I love how they kind of set the world and set things in motion. So Rebirth is high just because I really like Terry McGinnis as Batman, and
That's
I'm
fair.
a sucker for
All right,
origins.
that was a good pun.
Thank you. Number 7 is called Alternate Realities.
Okay.
Okay, this could be a few.
This could be a few.
So again, I'm gonna guess For Chance to Dream.
And in that case, you would be correct.
Nice. Okay.
So yes.
Fantastic episode.
Yeah.
Number 8 is featuring Jim Gordon, the next John Wick.
This is Over the Edge.
This is Over the Edge.
Nice.
Nice.
Okay, we've gotten the Dream ones
Yes.
off
Yes.
the table.
I really like the dream ones. Again, I said this earlier in
Me
the
too.
episode, probably like an hour and a half ago. I really like the ones that keep you guessing, that you don't really know what's going on. You're asking a lot of questions, and
I think that was like 2 hours ago.
that was probably 2 hours
I think
ago.
that was like 3 hours ago. Right?
Who knows at this point? But yes, very much like those kind of episodes, so they all made very high on my list.
Yeah.
Number 9, the Excellent Sidekick.
Okay, the Eggbaby.
obviously.
Yes, Eggbaby.
Fantastic.
Number 10 is called Eternal Youth.
Is this the Ra's al Ghul one? From
This is Out of the
Out of the
Past.
Out of the Past.
We have to try and guess. Well, you'll know it, but like the actual episode title.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I actually do have written down, shockingly.
nice.
Nice.
Number 11, Silence is Golden.
Oh, this is Shriek?
This is Shriek.
Nice.
The first Shriek.
The first
Okay.
Shriek, which is actually just called
Just called
Shriek.
Shriek. Okay.
Number 12, Riddle Me This.
Ooh.
Okay, well, that could be either one. I'm going to say, if you're so smart, why aren't you rich?
No.
Riddler's Reform?
It is.
Wow, I thought you liked the first one more.
I did not. Mainly because of that whole like maze, like computer game scenes. With that being said, I named the next one Competitron.
Competitron. So
Like 4 hours away. Competitron?
Competitron. Which you'll get when I explain it.
Competitron.
Is this the other Riddler one?
It is the other Riddler.
Okay, I know why. It's just the computer game.
It is. The computer game, or I think the company that was working on it, one or the other, I think it was the company, was actually called Competitron.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah. Number 14, so we're about halfway through the list almost, is Mind Control.
Okay, so obviously it's one of the Spellbinder ones.
I'm going to say it's the first Spellbinder one, which was called Spellbound.
Which is correct.
Yeah.
Nice.
The first Spellbound is by far my favorite. Number 15 is called Sinking Feeling.
Oh, yeah, Ascension.
We already know that one.
Yes. Didn't want to change that one, but
Yeah,
I
that
like
one's
the
a good
title.
one. That was a good
Yeah,
title.
the joke there is that he named it the complete opposite of what the title means. It's called Ascension, and he called it a sinking feeling.
He drowned.
Because Blight drowns at the end.
Why is it called Ascension?
Why is it called Ascension?
I don't know.
Actually, yours makes more sense.
You guys can be the judge on if you like my titles or the actual
I definitely
titles.
Obviously, we like yours better.
Yeah.
Number 16 is Can't Believe My Eyes.
Oh, that's Eyewitness?
It is.
Nice.
Nice one, Dan. 17, The Heart of the Harlequin.
Mad Love.
Yes. 18 is Winter's Solstice.
Is that-
It's Heart of Ice.
It is Heart of Ice, which makes the next one Winter Comes Twice.
Meltdown.
Yes. So nearing the bottom half of my list then, almost in the last quarter, Costume Crusader the Third.
Is that the Shadow of the Bat?
It is the Shadow of the Bat.
Oh, good.
You guys are doing good.
I got that.
Oh, we should just for context. So that was the Batgirl episode.
Yes, that
Yes.
was the Batgirl episode. The Costume Crusader the Third.
A girl?
A girl? So 21 of 31, so in the bottom 10.
Okay.
Inks Run Dry.
I'm guessing the second Ink one, which is
Inkling.
Disappearing Ink.
Oh, no, sorry.
Correct.
Disappearing Ink. Yeah, you're right.
Which makes the first one Inksplosion.
Which is Inkling?
Not
That was-
Inkling.
No, it's Blackout
Blackout.
is the first.
There
Ink.
is one called Inkling.
Yeah.
Yeah. 23, Call of the Blue Sword Lady.
Okay.
The culture, alright?
Yes.
The blue sword lady.
I don't know.
I feel like I'm gonna need you to quickly read these after with their actual titles
Yeah,
so I
let's
can
do
really
that.
like hear
Understood.
where they are in the
This one is just for the fun of the game.
Yes, this is just a game, yeah.
24 is Vroom.
Oh, this is the second Spellbound.
Yeah, I can't remember its name. It's
Oh,
Does the audience have it?
what was this one called? I don't want to look at my list.
either email us with the name of this episode.
Email.
By the time
Send
we
us
get
a
it.
fax.
Yeah.
Yes. It's called Hooked Up.
Ah.
Oh yeah.
But the arcade that they go to is called the VR Room.
Yes,
which
that's
for
right.
some reason in the episode they called Vroom. Don't know
yeah,
why.
it's because we didn't even talk about Terry's friend, but she's the one
Max.
who reads it as Vroom.
Yes, and we don't really need to
Yeah,
talk
Max
about
no,
Max
it.
no.
sucks.
I was shocked because we had jumped into that episode without any backstory, so we're like, who is this? Why does she know him like as Batman?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's fine. Alright, so down to the bottom 6, so we're really getting to the bottom of the barrel here.
Oof.
Sonic Boom.
This is the second shriek, which is Babel.
Correct. 26 is Split Personalities.
Two-Face?
Correct.
Wow, okay.
27 is Claymation.
Feet of Play. One.
Correct. 28 is Scaredy Bat.
Nothing to Fear?
Yep. 29 is Slappers.
Oh.
Oh, Winning Edge.
Yeah.
Wow, that is like your second lowest. God damn.
30 is Sid the Squid.
Okay. The man who killed Batman.
Yeah. And 31 is Batman Beyonder.
Epilogue.
Yes. So honestly, I feel like my titles aren't that bad because you guys guessed all of them pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was fun though.
that's pretty good.
So let's go back and
Yes.
So
see
just
the
read
actual-
through.
Yep. So I'm gonna go top 10. Return of the Joker, Mask of the Phantasm,
Okay.
World's Finest. Top 3 movies. Episodes go Almost Got 'Em, Old Wounds, Rebirth, Perchance to Dream, and Over the Edge. After that, we go with Eggbaby, Out of the Past, Shriek, Riddler's Reform, and If You're So Smart, Why Aren't You Rich?
Okay.
Then we get into about the middle tier, so you get Spellbound, Ascension, Eyewitness, Mad Love, Heart of Ice, and Meltdown. After that, you have Shadow of the Bat, Disappearing Ink, and Blackout. Then we get to about the bottom ones, which is Call of Curare, Hooked Up, Babel, Two-Face, Feet of Clay, Nothing to Fear, Winning Edge, The Man Who Killed Batman, and then Epilogue.
Nice. Okay.
Nice.
So it honestly goes like movies. I want to say it's a pretty good mix in like the top half of Beyond and animated series. Like they both had some great highlights. Same with like the middle. I want to say there's more Beyond episodes in the middle range.
Yeah,
because they're all like fairly solid.
There's more just solid Beyond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then in the bottom was definitely more of the Batman animated series, but I don't know. There was just a couple of them that were fine, but I think maybe it was just Beyond's production value that maybe caught me more.
And it's also like those early seasons of BTAS where it's like they're still figuring out what the thing is, as opposed to by the time you get to Beyond,
it's a lot more refined.
You made like 20 seasons and 2 movies, and you're like, yeah, we know how to make it solid. Episode. Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's how my list goes. What about you, Dan?
Well, we have the same top 5.
Really?
So I'm gonna get those off the bat right now. Obviously, the 3 movies are also on my top 3, and they are in the same order. Return of the Joker. Oh, by the way, this is S tier. I split mine into specific
Dan has
tiers.
his in tiers.
Perfect.
So S tier, Return of the Joker, Mask of the Phantasm, World's Finest, aka the Batman Superman movie, Old Wounds, which is the Nightwing episode, Almost Got 'Em, and Eggbaby.
Nice.
Okay, those are all S tier.
Okay.
Next is A tier, Over the Edge, aka the Batgirl Scarecrow episode, Perchance to Dream, Riddler's Reform, If You're So Smart, Why Aren't You Rich, and Out of the Past, the Ra's al Ghul.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, B tier, there's only 3 in this tier, Shriek, Meltdown, and Hooked Up.
Okay.
Meltdown and Hooked Up. Okay.
C tier, now this has the most in it out of all the tiers, which makes sense. C tier is just like an average, nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
Nothing too special episode,
Yes.
in my opinion anyway. Okay, so at the top, and by the way, I should specify, like, these are also ordered, so they're also within each tier. The order that they're in makes, like,
sense.
It's which ones are better than the other.
Right.
So at the top of C tier is Spellbound, and then Eyewitness, so 2 Spellbinder right next to each other. Then Ascension, The Winning Edge, Rebirth, Heart of Ice, Mad Love, Two-Face, and Shadow of the Bat.
Okay.
That's C tier. D tier is Babel, Call of Curare, Disappearing Ink, Feet of Clay, The Man Who Killed Batman, Nothing to Fear, and Blackout. And then F tier is Epilogue.
Nice.
Sitting all alone.
Nice.
As it deserves.
As it deserves.
The only F tier member.
It almost deserves its like own tier, even
like Z tier.
Z tier.
Z tier.
Z tier.
Epilogue might be, if you took this entire universe, like Batman, Superman, Justice League, Beyond, everything. You took every season, every show, everything, and you put it on a tier list. I think Epilogue would still be at the very bottom of that tier. Like, I don't think...
It's because what it stands for.
Yeah,
it is.
It is truly just like what it stands for and how it fucks up the ending. Like, yeah.
Like, even context aside, it's not a very gripping episode.
Exactly.
And when you add the context, it just...
It makes it worse.
Creates so many plot holes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's bad.
It sucks. Exciting.
No, very exciting.
Are you guys looking forward to coming back to this universe?
I am. I'm looking forward to seeing, the ones that you didn't deem were
watch.
Not that you didn't deem them worthy, but
know.
you just didn't deem them like required viewing for the first round. And I'm excited to see if our opinions are different.
Yeah. It'll be exciting for sure. I'm excited.
I'm also pretty excited to eventually jump into like Justice League and see how that all kind of ties in or doesn't tie in.
Yeah, because you were saying Justice League has a lot, like the further you get into that series, it has a lot more overarching story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
It's cool. And it plays with more of the universe, introduces more characters and stuff. Yeah, it's nice. It's it's fun. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad you guys enjoyed. Glad we did this. Got all our thoughts out. And
immortalize them.
Forever.
Yeah, Batman Forever.
Yes.
By the way, this didn't start as like we're gonna do this for a podcast episode. This is just we were doing it. And we were like, this would make an interesting discussion.
Yeah,
we talked for like 5 fucking hours.
There was so much to talk about.
It's not
every time
possible
we talk about Batman.
Yeah, that's the problem. It's because it's Batman.
It's always Batman.
Anyway, watch everything except Epilogue and enjoy your life.
But watch everything.
Watch the movies if you like. You can watch them stand alone. They're all pretty great.
Yeah, I would say if you want like a litmus test for any of this stuff, like watch Phantasm, watch Mask of the Phantasm. If you like that, go to the animated series. If you like that, go to Beyond. You'll enjoy yourself. But yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, Angelo, thanks again for coming on the show.
Yes, and thanks for having me.
Glad to have you.
Anytime.
Hope to see you guys in my part 3 return.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Not sure what for yet, but you will be back.
Something out. Yeah,
we'll
I'm
watch
sure
something.
If we watch more episodes of this, we'll add it to the list. We'll
We're
come
gonna
back.
do a part 3.
Yeah, we'll do a. We don't have to necessarily summarize each one, but we can do like a tier list, like edition episode where we kind of go through and see where everything would fall. Is there anything in this? Actually, this is maybe a question for you guys. Is there anything? Fuck Epilogue. Like take Epilogue out. Is there anything else that in anything we watch that stands out to you that like you really hate and or think is just like straight up bad?
Sid the Squid.
I mean, I don't even hate that. The only thing I hated was Epilogue.
No, I didn't. I honestly, as jokes aside, didn't even hate it. It just was
dumb.
Unnecessary.
Yeah, I know.
Like
Yeah.
they could have just not made it. I would have been fine. They did make it. I'm still fine.
Yeah.
But I mean, honestly, top of my head, nothing else made me upset.
Me neither. And I will say on this note, as we move towards like the end of the episode, this is fitting. Like when we got to Beyond, I was so used to the world of the animated series that it kind of had to grow on me.
Mm-hmm.
But the further we went into it, the more I was definitely enjoying the show a lot.
Yeah.
And that world of dystopian future, Gotham City.
Yeah, it gets fun the more you're in the world and you kind of live in there a bit. It's cool. It's interesting.
But no, everything's solid enough, and there weren't anything that left me hanging or left me questioning, or everything tied up fairly nicely.
I'm glad you guys enjoyed. I know, like, sometimes with this, I mean, obviously it is so beloved by so many people, but then I always do wonder, like, did we all just grow up with it, and are we all just lying to ourselves? Like, is it actually bad? But the fact that, like, you guys haven't really seen any of it and came to it and we're still like, no, this is great. I was like, okay.
Yeah,
I'm not an insane person. This is good. Like, this is good Batman content.
This is good television.
Yes. Yeah.
No, this is a great, like you know how, this is a weird comparison, but you know how for the world to know, like future generations of humans to know how much a gram weighs, there's that like little gram, I don't know what you'd call it, but like it's like the little,
like
this is
scale?
the universal, yes, like this is the universal context for what a gram weighs.
Right.
This is like the universal context for if you're doing a Batman world right.
Yes.
Huh.
I would say so.
And then from there, like you would look at this and say, am I getting Gotham City right? But then you would just adjust the darkness for what the rating of the project is.
Right.
Yeah, it really is sort of like, could it exist in this universe? And that even is sort of my litmus test.
Or it's like a calibration. That's the word I'm thinking.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And I would even say, even for the characterization, like, that was one of the fun things about when I saw the Batman the second and third time, was going, okay, so, like, could I imagine, like, this Batman, Kevin Conroy Batman, like, saying those lines, or, like, doing these things? And, like, I could, and I was watching the movie, and I was like, oh yeah, that does sound like something he would say, or this is something he would do. And, like, it's, yeah, I agree with you. I think this is, like, a very good, like, center calibration of, like, if you go too far in either direction of this, you might be fucking something up. So, like, you should try to, like, always use this as your core base point.
And the two directions are Zack Snyder or
the 60s
Adam
show.
West.
Yeah, exactly. You've gone too far.
Yeah.
But, yeah, everything else, if you can just kind of keep it, at some sort of fluctuating level around this, I think you've done your job.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Batman.
Batman.
All right, I think we're.
Harvey, no.
Andrea. A girl?
Thanks again for listening to the Feature Length Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean a lot to us if you liked this video, give us a rating and review. If you want to stay up to date with the latest episodes of the podcast, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure you hit the bell to be notified when we post a new video, or follow the podcast on Spotify. If you want to connect with us directly, you can follow us on Instagram at Feature Length Podcast, or even send us an email at featurelengthpodcast@gmail.com. Catch you on the flip side.